Thank you. Anti-Arab, anti-Muslim racism. Basically, as we've heard, when I was growing up, the images in the media, camel jockeys, oil sheiks, and terrorists. This has been harvested over decades. I know in the earlier panel it was said that it didn't just happen when you got to Iraq. This has been happening since you were born. If you go to certain movies, started in the 80s, Eddie Murphy movie, Best Defense, Delta Force, rules of engagement, which put guns, weapons in the hands of Arab children, programming Americans that it's okay to kill, they are armed. Rendition, The Kingdom, any episode of 24. Even in Aladdin, children's movie, the movie opens with the scene that says, where they cut off your nose to spite your face, it's barbaric, but hey, it's home. So when the kids go to watch that movie, then they can go home and play video games of Desert Storm, Call of Duty, or Rainbow Six, where everything is an Arab terrorist. Next. Why is this so throughout the media? There is an agenda at play to only perpetrate the negative stereotypes of Arabs and Muslims, and that is our relationship with Israel, in contrary to international law. The reason I'm so grateful for your support and applause, but you're taking my time. The reason that I'm bringing this up is that my job here was to put into context the racism that's happening. And we also need to put into context what's happening in Iraq. It is an extension of the 60-year occupation of Palestine. That is what's going on here. It's much bigger than 2001 or 2003. There are joint American-Israeli operations in occupied Palestine, in occupied Iraq. Ours is blind military, political, and financial support that is the only reason that the Israelis and the Israeli government can continue to do what they do. That's why Rachel's story was buried. 3 days later, shock and awe began in Iraq. It's in order, as the same as we've heard, to control the resources of Western Asia. Next slide. So just an idea of, these people have been fighting each other for thousands of years? No. Really, just since the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians happened since 1948. Next slide. And the same thing in Iraq. They've been killing, even I hear some progressives, they've been killing themselves for thousands of years. No, really just since 2003. Next slide. We heard testimony that crowd control that the MPs were using in Iraq, concussion grenades, projectile beanbags, rubber bullets. Who did we learn that from? That's Israeli crowd control in Palestine. And there are connections, high-level connections between the U.S. Army and Israelis. This is supposed to be non-lethal ammunition. Well, a rubber bullet, which is a steel bullet coated with rubber, is lethal when it's lodged in a child's brain. Next slide. Why don't we know what's actually happening? Just briefly, I will show you why, because of the messages in the media. Next slide. This was a study done in 2004 called Deadly Distortion. Check out the website, ifamericansknew.org. Associated Press coverage of Israeli and Palestinian deaths. Associated Press. This is not an obscure news reporting agency. I will focus on the reporting of children's deaths. The AP reported Israeli children's deaths more often than the deaths occurred, but omitted any coverage of 85% of Palestinian children killed. This is not a mistake. This is not an aberration. This is an agenda. This is a policy. Next slide. The reason for this, and I will show you, in 2004, the actual number of Israeli children who died because of the actions of a Palestinian, 8. The actual number of Palestinian children who died because of the actions of an Israeli, most often IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, was 179. What did we see in the media? The next graph. 113% reporting of the Israeli children's deaths because they appeared in more than one headline or more than one article. That's fine. But what happened was only 15% of these Palestinian children's deaths were reported. So that's why we have a distorted view. Let me be perfectly clear with my 100% Semitic background. I am not saying that the 8 Israeli deaths don't matter. I am saying that the 179 Palestinian deaths do. And unless we know what's being done in our name, we're not going to bring an end to this, and we have to. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you. I'm almost done. Now, why would the AP do this?
I think this might be a good time to segue into Chris's comments, if that's okay.
Okay, next slide. I'll do the last slide. Okay, so the billions of dollars going to the Israelis, including $1 billion, and in 2005, the veterans' health care budget was $1 billion short. Next slide. And I do want to address this because of racism. This is what Muhammad Ali said. No, I am not going 10,000 miles to help murder, kill, and burn other people to simply help continue the domination of white slave masters over dark people the world over. This is the day and age when such evil injustice must come to an end. No Viet Cong ever called me names. Freedom means being able to follow your religion, but it also means carrying the responsibility to choose between right and wrong. So thank you, IVAW. So when the time came for me to make up my mind about going in the Army, I knew people were dying in Vietnam for nothing, and I should live by what I thought was right. And now the whole world knows that. That was 40 years ago. This is today. You guys lead. We will follow. Thank you so much.